If you love stock guitars, this is not the episode for you. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So we're going to kick things off here tonight with a vintage 1955 Gibson Les Paul Goldtop. So let's take a look here. Give it a second. You notice anything different here? It's got a wrap tailpiece. What? Les Paul? No, it's the double pick guard. All right, so 54-55, you're going to have the wrap tail. That's just part of the evolution of the Les Paul. The whole double pick guard phenomenon is occasionally found on some acoustic guitars. Sometimes it's stock, other times people add them because they see some cool country stars doing it. But either way, they look so cool and fancy. Even some Spanish-style flamenco guitars. But then you come over here to a Les Paul and, you don't see that too often. It just makes it look so weird and foreign, especially because of the wrap tailpiece. Humans are designed to love symmetrical things, and you nearly have that until you get to your toggle switch. Just missing over here, you just need an additional set of knobs, and then somebody could play it lefty, especially if they did another cutaway. Now, I was hoping we would have some sort of a magical story of how it left the factory like this. But unfortunately, no. All we know is the current owner got it around 1968 and hasn't really played it since. I mean, look at those frets all greened over. Usually it's the gold finish that's greening over. But thankfully, you can clean those frets if you want, and our new description has updated that after they took these photos, they decided to clean it. But some guys, when you clean a 50s vintage, they get upset with you. But you can definitely see the age on those strings. So I think at least polishing the frets up and getting nice fresh strings is a worthwhile investment. But it looks like we've got some fading underneath the tailpiece right here. You can still see that in this area, so I wonder if there was something else on this guitar at one point, like a sticker. Because at the very bare minimum, we have a new nut on it. But the serial number does indeed date to 1955. And you know, for one of these, not in that bad a condition. But if you don't love that double pickguard look, you're gonna be left with a couple of screw holes. However, at the same time, that could be a potential conversion candidate for someone, if they were going to retop it anyway. But I wouldn't suggest that on this one. It seems to be relatively clean. And it's got some of the original hang tags. But what I don't get is, I've never seen this photo in my life, but then once Gibson posts the red eye one, I see it in like every single vintage listing. Is it just something that I didn't notice, or did other people not understand where that was hung up and that new photo shoot brought it up? It's one of those things that you don't forget about once you've seen it. So that's one great thing about the recent red eye reissue, but you can check out this video here if you need to learn more. But if you're interested in owning this double pick guarded piece, it's offered in Portland, Oregon, local pickup only, $60,000 by Black Book Guitars. And they do have a video of it. You can see they took care of those frets. As far as seeing the rest of the guitar, yeah, that's all we got, 13 seconds. But if 60 G's is out of the question, here's one for about 2.5 with the title of Psychedelic Paisley Les Paul Deluxe from 1974, heavily modified. What have we gotten into? Well, it could be worse. It really could be. Whoever did the new finish work, I would say it's tasteful if you like that sort of thing. My biggest question here is, does it glow a certain way under black light? Because that would be sweet. Otherwise, I would have liked to have seen like some sparkles get worked into this, and maybe it just looks particularly flat in these photos. But did this actually start life as a 74 Deluxe? Well, we've got the ABR1 bridge, so that's looking good for it. A Deluxe would have had mini humbuckers, so it's at the very least been routed and refinished. But now we get to our headstock. Interesting. So our truss rod cover's been replaced. I guess that's not the right style for the particular year that they're saying. But it's so strange to see one of these older logos with such a clean finish. I do not believe that's an authentic Les Paul silkscreen in the center. Something's off in this area. And if this truly is 70s, somebody has reamed our headstock for a more modern style tuner. I mean, at this point, the whole thing's been refinished, so what does it really matter? But now when we get back here, yeah, definitely modern Gibson tuners. But the headstock looks so small and like a little bit different. I think some sanding has occurred to this one. Obviously, because they've done the finish. You can see right here, there's filled in screw holes from Schaller tuners. So it's at least on set number 3, and since those are so perfectly blended in and finished over, you know it's been refinished. It nearly looks like they sanded the volute away. But wow, that back looks very strange like this. It appears to be a satin finish, but it is a one-piecer. However, it's probably a pancake body. Yes, we can confirm that right there. If I had to guess, this is probably some sort of a poly finish though, just on the way it's looking. But according to the seller, it started life as a Goldtop Deluxe. And hey, they're actually very, very forthcoming of everything I noticed. I would say this is a trustworthy shop to deal with. But they're actually saying this is a real fabric top. So if this isn't necessarily to your style, I bet that would be fairly easy to remove. I could be wrong on that. The only thing against it is the sanding of the headstock to make it look weird. However, that's the saving grace of Gibson using wings. You could easily restore that if you wanted to, and it really wouldn't look that out of place. So you tell me, is $2,500 USD that bad for a Project Deluxe? Typically clean ones of this era are at least $4,000 in a common color, with player's grade going for a little bit less. But speaking of 70s player's grade, here was an interesting Les Paul Standard that showed up over in Tokyo, Japan for just a little bit under $2,500. I clicked on this one because that has a vibe. It's really good looking. They've swapped out the cream plastics for black, but that matches your vintage sunburst hue incredibly well. They also swapped over into the black speed knobs, but just looking over here, you can tell this thing has seen a lot of smoky bars. Flipping over to the back kind of confirms what we already knew here. Lots of playware. But then check out that neck. Yeah, that's definitely played in. But look what it's sitting on. They're gonna ship it internationally in a gig bag. But here's some good news for a player. We've got a new bone nut, has definitely been refretted. We're missing the toggle switch tip, but I would imagine this would be one pretty smooth ride. Headstock's looking pretty cool. Looks like maybe a little bit of separation right here. It's probably nothing to worry about for a while. And it dates to the 38th day of 1979. And you can just barely make out the Made in USA stamp there. If you're looking for a vibey piece, but you don't want to pay crazy money for it, I would consider suggesting this. However, be very careful buying really used guitars out of Japan. Because even though Ishibashi, you can trust them, I've bought many things from them. I've dealt with some really reputable shops all over the world, and you'd be surprised what slips through the cracks sometimes. The only reason I bring it up, this came to you from Japan, and getting it back to Japan is kind of a bit of an ordeal. And sometimes the Google Translate is not the best, like right here. They do disclose the truss rod. It says about half of the rod remains on the tightening side. So I would imagine that means you're close to limited adjustability. Usually when I buy out of Japan, I try to stick to the newer stuff unless it's something really special that you have to have and are willing to put a little bit more work into, just in case it's not perfect. But speaking of putting work into things, I thought this was a funny tribute that someone in Limerick, Ireland did. Look familiar? Somebody wanted a Buckethead Les Paul, but they didn't have a Buckethead budget. He took a regular Alpine White Les Paul Studio that was looking like this, and he bucketified it as best as he could on a budget. And I would say, all things considered, it turned out pretty all right. So here's the thing about the Gibsons and tributes of the Buckethead model. They never get the baritone scale length, and they never get the oversized chambered body right. The next thing I would criticize on this one is, didn't get the red switch tip. I understand how hard it is to find the ones that fit there, so I'll let that pass. We don't have the white knobs. You opted for clear, nothing wrong with that. But the kill switch, I can just tell that's not a very good kill switch. You need the Sanwa arcade style, but here's the reason he did that. These ones didn't require reaming out the guitar. It could be returned to stock at any time. Totally makes sense why he didn't go full gung-ho here. Same thing with the pickups. He replaced it with looks like some sort of DiMarzio's. But one day they could be restored stock if he ever changed his mind. I've seen a lot of these Buckethead tributes, but it was this that made me want to share it. They've got Mr. Bucket there and the whole Air Jordan pose with a basketball, and I just find that funny. But I was thinking, okay, everything else was reversible. Why did you refinish the headstock? Apparently, that's just a vinyl. You can take it off, and what's over top of it is just a sticker. And on the backside, he upgraded it to locking style tuners. Looks like he had some sort of a capo or video camera on his guitar. So if you're not handy or creative and you want to buy it from him, he's asking $1,307 plus $100 shipping. And it looks like it comes with everything original outside of the pickups, and I was wrong. Apparently those are some boutique ones, Iron Gear UK. But this one really threw me for a loop. It was listed as a Gibson Blood Moon 2020, but it sure didn't look like one. This was a Guitar Center exclusive model. They first started with the Dark Knight that was based on custom shop models, but then the year afterwards, they decided to do a red version. Now these were satin finished guitars. They have some fancy electronics, the whole blacked out inlay vibe. They're actually really cool for their time. They had the flame maple neck. They used up some of the old aluminum HP style cases. They've held value pretty well on the used market, all things considered, but it used to look like this. But someone didn't want to be scary anymore and transformed it into cream plastics and gold. I don't hate it. is completely different than it started life. It's amazing how changing plastics and hardware just completely changes the instrument. But sure enough, you still have the satin finish. You've got the original case. Still has the blacked out Gibson logo. They're just, once again, golden tuners. And there we go. One-piece flame maple neck. Very unique spec of those. But this one's definitely been used. And he's asking $3,100. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.